Hi, this is the evidence for the code and development rubric. Now the first one and the only one I have there is the quality of code. First piece of it is error handling. Now error handling here is happening at multiple levels, and we'll have to go into the code, have a look at the code to understand more about it. Starting with the simpler one, the simplest actually. The first one is the validation that is offered by Angular, which is if you have a data type tagged as number, if you enter a string, Angular is automatically going to give you an error which says it's a string and you have to enter a number. That's the piece I didn't have to work on very much. But as far as the input is concerned, as far as the user input is concerned, I wanted things to be a little bit more specific, more controlled. So I started with creating a service for it. What I did was that I collected all the validations that are needed in that service. So here, apart from the Angular updates, I'm also looking at, say for instance, validating an email. I'm looking at the format of the email. I'm looking at the user registration. I'm checking if the person has actually entered all the required fields. Same with the applications survey. I have created a validation function for every form that I'm expecting input from, be it edit or entry, and I put it all together in a service. And I call the service every time there is a submit button or every time the form is being loaded. So each piece you can see in any of the forms. So all my forms are within what we call components in Angular, and this service is constantly called or remotely called into the Angular component, and the checks happen, and based on the result of the check there is an error message displayed. That's the first piece. What I really look for is missing or blank data. Most of it you can see here is undefined or null. That's what I'm looking at. For instance, suppose we look at an app detail form. So here I am actually calling this service, profile service, and checking if there is a validation possible. Has all data been entered? That's what is the definition of validate app in the service zone. If it's not been entered, then I basically show up an error message on the flash area which says please fill in all details, and I try to make that last for a few seconds so that the user can read it. One piece that I'm going to consider in the future is probably highlighting the specific missing fields in the form itself, but at the moment that piece is not implemented. I have, however, marked all the required fields with a clear icon which says required. So I'm assuming the user will be able to look at the form and quickly guess what is missing or what piece of information is missing. So that's something I may have to work on in the future to highlight the form clearly as far as the missing content goes. Now the second piece of this is duplication of data. So duplication of data requires me to connect with the database, to make sure the Mongo database basically, and find out if there is a particular app ID that's already present. So application ID is a very important piece of the website, and I would not like it to be duplicated, at least with the concept that it has been created at the moment. So I talk to the database, find out if the application ID is already present, and put out an error message based on the message that I get from the application. So when I try to enter a new application ID which is already existing, there is a specific error message that pulled out by the Mongo database. I connect to the Mongo database using a connector called Mongoose, and I have tried to pull out that error message, read the error message, and then show that the app already exists. So you can see instances of that here. It's already been duplicated, and this is a very specific coded error message that comes out, and I have kind of directly checked for that particular error message string that I'm looking out for. That's another good example of error handling. And another piece of error handling happens in the routing file. Whenever I look for a URL and I look for the JSON object string that is returned to me, I always do a check for an error. So there is no route here, there is no URL here which doesn't have this error handling. So you would not find a URL which would give you a show-stopping situation where your website has hung up or you can't do anything more than that. You are always going to be redirected to a safe page which tells you that oh, you got wrong, but here is where you can restart if you want. So this is a consistent theme everywhere in the routing file. You can see the error messages and everything clearly done. If error, then you get back the error actually, and if not, you get a message which says done successfully. Sometimes I have logged it into the console to make sure I as a developer can read it, and sometimes I have actually put out the information for the user to know. In cases of delete and so forth, your page refreshes instantly and the user doesn't exactly need to know that the row or the record that they were trying to delete is gone. It is gone in front of them and they are happy to see that it's gone, so they're assured about it. But sometimes I've logged it into the console to make sure that the error messages are caught. Apart from that, the final piece would be the login logout, where I'm checking for roles. I consistently keep checking at every page load if you are still logged in. If you are not, you are provided an instant message which says you're not logged in, and for some reason you've been logged out and you're pushed back to the home page where you have a chance to log in again. So all these are very good examples of the error handling throughout the code, and you can see some of them as error messages when you use